Well, it says we're live. Aren't we live? I'm going to say we're live. Every time I launch this program, I have no idea if it's going to work. Hello, everybody. My name is Steve Conley. You know me. I'm the guy on this channel. You wouldn't be here if you didn't know who I was. You're not stumbling onto this by accident. But my name is Steve Conley. I write and draw the webcomic The Middle Age, which you read over at Webtoons, tab is Go Comics, and at middleagecomic.com. I also make role-playing game stuff, like Intoximancy, like Death Dealing, like the Prayer's Handbook, colon, the Metadomain Cleric. I couldn't call it the Metadomain Cleric, and plus the Prayer's Handbook is such a good name for a cleric book. And then I followed those three with Nibblemancy, which shipped earlier this year. My very latest one, which launches today on Kickstarter at noon East Coast time, hopefully chat's working, hopefully everything's working, is this one over here called Stabracadabra. I was going to launch this in in August, but I injured my Achilles, and it was awful, and I do not recommend it. Yeah, that was awful. So I injured my Achilles, and I kind of really couldn't be at my desk. I couldn't sit for too long, even this amount of time. I have photos I will never share of like how one of my feet was just like twice the size of the other foot. So I couldn't be at any. I basically had to keep my leg elevated, lots of anti-inflammatories and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, I couldn't be at my desk, so for 2 months I've been itching to launch this thing, and we're here now. So whenever I put my computer screen, my iPad, to whenever I connect it to my Mac to show you my iPad screen, which is what we're seeing over here, whenever I do that, it says it's January 9th at 9:41 a.m. So I'm not sure if it's time travel or what, but it is today. It is November the 12th. I'm coming up on noon East Coast time, which is when I promised I would launch this thing. It has been a while since I've done a Kickstarter. There was The Middle Age Volume 3 and Nibblemancy, and that got delivered earlier this year. So it has been a while. I've been just trying to do one of these every 2 or 3 months. I have so many ideas. I really want this to come out right. There's something about the momentum of a Kickstarter that, you know, as people are getting the cool stuff in the mail, like hopefully they open up Nibblemancy, they're super happy with how it turned out, and they're like, oh, and I include a note when I ship these out saying the next one's on the way, here's what it is. And here's a URL. I try to make it a handy URL, like getting Stabracadabra.com. Boy, fingers crossed we are streaming. But the idea is that there's some momentum, that as each campaign wraps up, the next one starts, and that can be my livelihood. I've done 4 of these books so far, that, as I mentioned, Intoximancy, Death Dealing, The Prayer's Handbook, and Nibblemancy, which can't say I'm so happy with how that cover turned out. It was my favorite until Stabracadabra. Stabracadabra got a little extra love because the cover was basically done and ready to go in August, and then I had an extra month, 2 months, to when I could be at my art, when I could hold the iPad properly and, you know, with one leg in the air. I was able to just keep working on the cover and adding things to it. And in that time, something tragic happened, which was Drew Struzan passed away. And Drew Struzan, a legendary poster artist, I was able to hire him to produce one of the covers of my comics. And he did an amazing job. He was an incredible talent. If you ever saw the Raiders of the Lost Ark posters, all the Star Wars re-releases, he was just a legendary Hollywood movie poster artist, and he did book covers and VHS covers and things like that. But one of his first comic covers was one I just reached out to his agent and was able to hire him, and I had .com money at the time. I'm a web designer when I'm not doing this stuff. I do less and less web design, and social media and things like Squarespace and stuff like that have removed the need to hire a web designer for most people. So, you know, the web design business has become less and less of my portfolio, but I still do it for small businesses and things like that. I think the last big project I did was for some comic conventions. I don't want to necessarily mention them by name in case, I don't know, they want to keep it on the down low. I don't know. I always feel weird shouting out people like somehow it's like stolen valor, but there are a couple of really good websites. I do work for them. Mostly WordPress stuff. Anywho, Stabracadabra is the latest one. I'm super excited for it. The idea is, in my webcomic, The Middle Age, our hero Sir Quimp has a magic sword, a cursed sword. And it's not that the sword is cursed and he's stuck with it, it's that the sword is stuck with him. The curse is that he has to be wielded by essentially a doofus. Write what you know. And that I wanted to make a subclass from the very beginning, sort of inspired by Sir Quimp. All of my RPG stuff came out of an accident. I played D&D a bazillion years ago. I played the original red box and blue box editions of D&D. I never owned them. I had pieces of them, secondhand, flea market, scraps of them. Like if there was like I think I had a coverless copy of Keep on the Borderlands, and then I had the cover of something else like Expedition to Barrier Peaks, and of course I think my apartment's landscapers will work today. So while we're talking, I'm sure there will be the sound of a hurricane outside the window. But I had like basically scraps of D&D pieces, and the first D&D book I ever got was, for myself, purchased at a used bookstore, was Unearthed Arcana, which, as people know, has a glorious cover. It's absolutely inspired. That bay window behind the Nibblemancer is absolutely inspired by the cover of Unearthed Arcana by Jeff. The cover by Jeff Easley. Oh, Telemont. So with it being based on Quimp, does that mean the class has an int and wisdom requirements? Okay, I'll get into the mechanics. I'll get into the mechanics of it. It's a great question, because the idea with the Middle Age is that Sir Quimp is kind of a hapless romantic doofus, and the sword is a sarcastic jerk, and to turn that into a subclass. There's no literal way to, unless you were going to tear up 5e from the ground up and build a game around the mechanics of my webcomic, The Middle Age. Attaching it, affixing that to 5e wasn't really possible. There are things that happen in the story which just don't make sense. I mean, if you really wanted to do it that way, the character would be like a Jaeger from I can remember the robot, I can't remember the movie. Or its sequel, Pacific Rim. It'd be like a Jaeger where you have two players controlling one character. And I don't think that's either that character takes up twice the amount of time at the table, or each one of those players gets half as much time playing. So that didn't seem to be a logical thing to do. I had to work out mechanics where Maledicta, the sword that Sir Quimp carries, the Woeblade, that is not represented in the game. That's one of the swords it's referenced to. It's sort of like creating a collection of magic swords, referencing Excalibur but not including Excalibur, right? So in this mythos, which I don't expect people to tack onto their existing campaigns, I've kind of going to create it as a module that can be plugged into any world, any campaign. Also, with the notion that the lore that is presented in any of my books there's always an undercurrent of that it's apocryphal. The metadomain cleric isn't right about the universe necessarily, unless the dungeon master says so. But they're just a kook. They're just Murdoch from the A-Team. They're just this person who people kind of look askance at and like, wait, what? So my D&D role-playing origins were going back to those red box editions, and then there was like a 25-year nothing. I never played 2nd edition D&D. I played advanced D&D. I played the original stuff and advanced D&D through maybe 1990, and then I've basically been working ever since. I've gotten to work in newspapers and news services, and then .com happened and worked on that all the time, working on my comics. I'm a cartoonist primarily, but I love games. And I love writing for games because they scratch a different itch. It's not a unidirectional storytelling mechanism where I just sit alone with the comics. I just sit alone and I write and draw this thing and present it to the world, love it or hate it. And with role-playing game writing, you're creating tools that you hope other people will tell stories with, and you want to make them flexible and you want to make them appealing. I mean, that's the challenge, and that's why the sort of, if there's a mission statement for the games I make, it is fun, powerful, and playable. Fun is kind of the easy part, and fun can be a lot of different things. Fun includes rolling more dice, and to me, that means versatility, having options, but not so many options that you slow the player down, and not so much choice and star power that you overwhelm the other players at the team. Hey, Dave, Dan, to Dave. I tried to combine Zero Level and Dan, and I got Davil. Davil Media, my partner in crime. I'm Dan. I saw your posts from Gamehole Con, and I felt so much FOMO. It was unbearable. So the idea is that they're fun. So that means a lot of versatility, a lot of character, a lot of thematic components that tie them all together and make it so kind of easier to roleplay. Like in Toxomancy, if all the abilities and features and spells are tied to drinking, it's almost like easy mode for role-playing. You just have to slur your speech a little bit and cast cheers. And, it's kind of easy for people to do stuff like that. With Stabracadabra, a little more complicated, but the notion is that you're playing the sword and the fighter is your minion. And there's 3 flavors of how I see that relationship between the sword and the fighter. It's either possession, sort of like demonic possession, or like the TV show Supernatural, where the sword just inhabits the person's body, and the body is simply a vessel for the sword's behavior, and the sword can be a jerk and just treat this like a car they're going to ride into the ground. Or there's a blending, which would be more like the Trill from DS9, like Jadzia Dax and Ezri Dax, where you are not only yourself, but you're fusing with yourself and the entity you're with. And I think the way those 2 flavors work is, well, I'll have to get into the mechanics of it all, but I don't want it to be too complicated. I really don't want it to be too complicated. What I always do with these things is I make them too complicated, and then I pare a ton of stuff out of it, just so it doesn't melt anybody's brain. Or I put it in a section for, hey, here's the role-playing stuff. Like with the Metadomain Cleric, I just have a section of, can we be real for a minute? And I think that's a section where it just talks about how to roleplay. And not how to roleplay, but how to roleplay this subclass. And maybe some tacks you can take and some pop culture inspiration you can glean ideas from. Can I get any nerdier? Not medically. No, I don't think I can. I think I use the word glean. So no, I think that's maximum nerdiness. And people who are watching this know what glean means, not just for some sort of Wordle answer. And then the other one is kind of a partnership where it is the sword and also breaking down the moral implications of possession and treating the person as, like in the Trill with the blending, it's more of it's a willingness for the two to merge. Demonic possession, just no. And in the case of Sir Quimp in the Middle Age, it's definitely a thing where he really wants this sword. The sword's going to help him achieve his goals. And then the main component of this with Stabracadabra is that if the part of the fun of it, and the thing that got the best response when I was talking with people about it at conventions, was that you're playing the sword, you've got a fighter, the fighter dies, you roll up a new fighter. The fighter is essentially expendable. Now there are downsides. There are downsides to dying. I don't think that's a hot take. When your character dies, there are downsides. So it's not like a thing where you can just not endless post-it notes of fighters that you can just redo. But whenever you have a ability score improvement in the fighter subclass, that gives you a chance to a sort of a programmatic window with which to roll up a new fighter. The idea being that either you release the fighter because you want to upgrade, or the fighter dies, or the fighter accomplishes the meta narrative that you've created for that fighter, releasing them. So whenever they have those ability score improvements, you can pick a different one. So you're playing a human. Next thing you know, now you just roll up a level 4 elven fighter, and the subclass is Bladeborn. So you're playing a Bladeborn fighter, and you have this sword. So tricky, fun, I think, and the most interesting bit of it all is it came out of a campaign I was running where I wanted to create kind of cool magic items, but I feel like, so I was dungeon mastering, and as a dungeon master, you want to increase. Wait, this needs to be its own video. You want to increase the jeopardy in some way. You want to raise the stakes of the adventure. But dungeon masters will often point at death saves as being there's so many things in Dungeons and Dragons, like healing word and reactions and all these things which create safety net upon safety net upon safety net for characters. And I wanted to but they don't want to take those away because you're basically making the game a lot harder. You're making 5e much more OSR, much more difficult. But my thinking was, you tie it to a magic item, make it a really good magic item all the time. So the character attunes to it. They have this +1 to their spell save DCs, or to hit and damage, or it gives them, night vision or echolocation, or who knows what the thing does. It's a cool magic item worth having all the time. But it also has an on-use feature which consumes death saves. It basically just check them off. So if you get to 0 hit points, you don't have 3 death saves to play with anymore. You only have 1 or none. You get to 0 hit points, you're dead. But because it's the player who gets to activate that, it's their choice. They're rolling the dice. It's a different thing. It's like double jeopardy in Jeopardy, where a person, I'll make it a true daily double Ken, and you put all your winnings up to that point on the line. You get it wrong, it's on you. I want it to be a thing where the players have agency, and the players, it has to be a last-ditch epic power worth trading those death saves for. And I think of that. Also think about it like the Human Torch in the Fantastic Four, where Nova and massive explosion takes out the bad guys, and Johnny Storm falls to the ground because he's spent. And thinking of death saves as life force, and that the weapons drain the life force to power these effects. I think narratively it's interesting. You're taking a real chance. Usually these are things which just don't benefit yourself. They can benefit allies as well. I always assume D&D is not not one player and one DM, that it's a team. And you're doing things that benefit your team as well. One of my favorites is called Protector's Bulwark. Big old shield. Good shield. It's a great shield. It's a magic shield. Gives you +1 AC. So in addition to the normal shields, +2 AC, now you got +3 AC, which is phenomenal. When you activate it, take some of your life force, and it creates a shield, a larger shield, protecting allies who are adjacent to you, who can now use your armor class as their own if they choose. So when I was testing this, I was playing a Warforged cleric, plate armor. This shield had a 21 AC. Plants it there, and the idea is when you're doing this, I think in the latest iteration you are considered. Your movement's halved. I don't want to have other side effects to it, but your movement is slowed. Like you can't move it. Like it's almost like it creates this. You're planted in a way, and so now you become this thing that your teammates can go alongside and get the benefit. So the ranger was next to the cleric and was able to benefit from the cleric's armor class. So suddenly the ranger had a 21 AC. The rogue could hide and have a 21 AC, but only for a certain amount of rounds, and a real expense of at a real cost to the cleric. So it's stuff like that. It's I don't know. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So the end result was that there's going to be 2 books here, and you can see those over on the screen here. Stabracadabra, which is the zine, and then the Death Save Devices, which is the collection of magic items. Part of the fun of this, let me put the URL in chat. It's stabracadabra.com. A lot of my previous campaigns had kind of cool perks. Like the Nibblemancy campaign had the Nibblemancy apron, which had the cover art for Nibblemancy printed on it. But things like that are trickier nowadays because all that stuff was fulfilled and manufactured, not fulfilled, it was manufactured or was in process before tariffs took effect. Now to get those things from all around the world is going to cost me a lot more. It cost customers a lot more. And so I don't. I kind of avoided all that, and I think, and it gave me a chance to do this second book. So, and because books are currently exempt from most tariffs, and mine are all produced in the continental U.S., maybe occasionally in Canada, but books are usually exempt from that sort of stuff. So having a second book made more sense. There will still be a mini, but we're at that time. We're about a few minutes away. So assuming I think I've kicked the tires on this thing again and again and again. I don't know. Let's see if I get this to come up. I don't know if there's anything left for me to do. I had goofed on the last campaign. I had associated a item with a different tier in the rewards, and I think people who had signed up for it got given the wrong thing, so I had to scramble to fix that. I don't think I've kicked these tires a lot. I wish I could have done more. Always, people don't know how complicated it is to set these things up when you have as many products and you have lots of stuff. But whew, let's go live. Exit preview. There's so many graphics you have to create. There's so many things you have to connect. And social media is mostly useless now. I'm ready to launch. I mentioned this campaign over on Blue Sky, and I felt bad. I don't want to do that. I feel like, you have a community there that's full of lovely people, and here I am, sullying it with a billboard. Good news, your project's been approved. You will go live if you continue here. I'm ready to launch. Ready to launch. They've asked me again. Are you sure? I mean, if you ever ask me if I'm sure, I immediately become unsure. Launch project. Goo. Congratulations, your project is live. Goo. It is so stressful. It is so stressful. I understand, because it's easy. People go, it's easy for me to say, oh, you should do a Kickstarter. It's like someone says, you should do a YouTube channel. It is so stressful to launch a YouTube. It's stressful to launch anything, really. Like a large ship. It's so stressful to launch a crowdfunding campaign because you hit the launch button and you have no idea what's going to happen. And your heart's in your chest. You lovely people. My phone's already I forgot that the phone lights up. You glorious, beautiful people. You have a wonderful look about you, and you're very symmetrical, I would say. And I don't know, have you been working out? You look good. But there's so much stress. I panic the whole time. Have I done enough? Are the prices right? Should I lower everything by $2? Does the goal make sense? I've had the same goal for every one of these campaigns, I think. The price has sadly gone up just because everything is like kicking me in the butt. The printers cost more money. The shipping the books costs more money. So much of it. But I'm hoping that the hope is always that I'm super delivering on every part of this, because like I told someone the other day, I want the production value to be good so that when you get this, you think, so even if you don't like the content, even if the content's weak, that I put so much into this. For Nibblemancy, I was painting lagoons, like you don't think that's what you're going to do when you start like making D&D products. You don't think you're going to start having to paint cake pops. Although, what I will say, one of my favorite moments in TTRPG design was going to Aldi and purchasing one of their like pumpkin spice or apple spice cookies by itself, just a tray of them. And they looked, I do some baking, and I'm really particular about the baking because I'm a nerd, as Dan has pointed out. Dan says, well, I was either the first or second to back. You are, I believe it was a mensch. Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much, Dan. Oh, I should be doing that. I watch enough Twitch. Mike, thank you. Owen, thank you. Andrew, you are lovely. JR, Zero Level Media, Cyber End. Thank you so much. So buying those cookies from Aldi and then saving the receipt, as those were a business expense. Those were business cookies. The reference material. Chris, thank you so much. Amazing. So here's the page. It is not yet a project we love. I haven't got one of those on in the TTRPG space yet, but I also haven't done a video. So the plan is I haven't done a video yet. Okay, hear me out. I think that thank you so much, John. I think that having the video come out in the next day or something, this is also could be just justifying laziness. Not laziness, but just who has time. If I create the video in the next few days, that's another reason that's another way to promote it without saying the same thing over and over again. I think that's really spam. And people said, how often can you send an email out? How often can you promote your thing? It's like when you have something genuinely of interest and new to say. I think unlocking stretch goals is a good reason to tell people. Unveiling new stretch goals. One of the things I do with my campaigns here is look, all the graphics. All these graphics have to be made. Unbelievable. What I've done is I have this little scroll at the bottom of the... thank you, Kevin. The scroll at the bottom of the stretch goals. And the idea is that as more things are unlocked, that unfurls and more are shown. I think that's a good reason to reach out to people and give people an update. And the Project We Love stuff is clearly a thing of knowing people that work at Kickstarter. I tell myself I'll back once I'm out of this dungeon. That's a good reason. It's like my signal has dropped. I'm going into a tunnel. I can't back now. I'm in a dungeon. Brian, thank you so much. Would I like to temporarily mute notifications from Kickstarter? No, I would not. This is making my day. Raph, thank you so much. Chris, I don't know if I thanked you already, but Chris is getting yet another shout out. Actually, a WoW dungeon. Oh wow, I didn't mean to say oh wow, but that's cool. I miss playing World of Warcraft. I would never get anything like this over here done if I played it still. Thank you, Brandon. But I've included things like I cleaned up the reviews here. I give people specs. I show people the mini, which I sculpt for purposes of painting. Paul, thank you so much for supporting the campaign. Picture of myself, a little something, a little spice. And Matthew, thank you so much. But I'm so excited. Including death save devices as part of this campaign was kind of, I didn't know. Okay, it was also, as most things in my life, in large part motivated by cowardice. I didn't know if a collection of magic items, if I produced just a collection of magic items, would anyone be interested? Because subclasses are kind of my thing now. But I really wanted to do this one, and so making this part of, and also tied thematically in with the Stabracadabra, a Bladeborn Knight, the Bladeborn Fighter. The idea that the sword can consume the death saves of the fighter and makes the character more vulnerable, increases the threat, increases the stakes. I love that. I think that's so much fun. I think the idea of giving characters a way to, I don't know, be bold and not timid. It goes along with something else I'm making for my, it'll be just on my Patreon to start, and I might make it a giveaway with this. Paulina, thank you so much. Another thing I'll be doing is that I've baked this into some magic items I've shared, and it's just going to be a single page PDF. It's just about adding expiration dates to consumables. Tom, thank you so much. The idea being that if you that a potion can go bad. I think that's the too many campaigns end with characters with bags full of unused unused stuff, because they're waiting for the right moment to use that superior healing potion or their potion of invulnerability or something like that. And I'm like, add expiration dates. make it easy to figure out what the expiration dates are. Like if you are proficient in Arcana and spend an hour with the thing, sort of like attuning to an item. Tyler, thank you so much for the support. I was hoping to do a second mini with this kit because I 3D printed here what the mini looks like. This is 3-up. I'm not any... Either this is 3-up or I'm 1/3 the size of a standard human. As a halfling, this is actual size. So I sculpt these as reference for my paintings because I'm, again, motivated by cowardice and not lacking faith in myself. That's not true. Self-deprecation is set to maximum whenever I'm running a Kickstarter campaign. So there's that, and there's this sculpt as well. This was from the Middle Age. This is Kevin the Illegible, another magic sword wielding a character in the game. Sorry, in the story, but now also in the game. And I've made this a villain. Essentially, with all my subclasses, I like to create their opposite, their counterpart. So you have metadomain clerics, and on the other side, what did we have? I forget what Nibblemancy had. Oh, Nibblemancy had like the kitchen golem. James, thank you for your support. With this, there is an edgelord, and so Kevin the Illegible, who's in the Middle Age, is our stand-in for the edgelord. And the plan is to make a mini of this, but that will unlock because minis are expensive to produce. It's not so much the cost per unit, it's the initial mold. And so I don't move thousands and thousands of copies. The price per unit is quite high, and that raises the price. So it ends up the mini kits that I have made, which are glorious and produced by a company called Trenchworks. They do phenomenal work. They do the work for MCDM. They really do amazing work. I really want those to exist, but the cost is too prohibitive. It just doesn't make sense. So hopefully at some point this enterprise will. Tyler, thank you so much. Peter, thank you so much. So I'm super excited. One of the things that's interesting about this is one of the most successful Kickstarters I've had was called Death Dealing, and it was a rogue subclass that throws magic cards. It had a lot of backers. It had like 477 backers, which might be a record for one of my campaigns. I think that is 477 was part of it is I think it leans into a Dungeons and Dragons aesthetic, which is badass, which is Stranger Things, which is rock and roll, and whereas a lot of the other projects I've done, like Intoximancy, kind of skirts that because it's got drinking in it, but it's very goofy, and my art style is the cover of Stabracadabra is a bit darker, but my art style is generally pretty upbeat, and that's not entirely. It seems like Dungeons and Dragons. Let me rephrase this or start over. Dungeons and Dragons has a bunch of different prevailing aesthetics. It goes from the kind of classic old school badass kind of I don't know, rock and roll, again epitomized by the characters in Stranger Things and Eddie, and then it goes to the kind of cutesy stuff, which is more common now, where people want to play an adorable frog or a tiny raccoon character that can cast magic spells and hurl a wave of butterflies at something. Both of those are fantastic. I love both of those. So my stuff ends up having both of those things. But curiously, the audiences for them are different, I think. I think when I see people come to my table at a convention or a gaming convention or a comic convention, the books they buy almost line up perfectly with the aesthetic of the person who's buying it. If they're wearing denim and kind of more rock and roll vibe stuff, they will pick Death Dealing. And if they are, I don't know, lighter in tone, they will go for something like Nibblemancy. It really matches their character in a lot of ways, which is kind of awesome. Oh boy, I missed a couple here. Michael, thank you. Who else I miss? Into Rose. I think Peter. I may be giving you a shout as well. I really, boy, I hope the tiers are, that the reward tiers. Bill, thank you so much. I hope the tiers are what people are hoping for. I hope it's all. I have tried to do things like save money when possible, because I know there's 2 books, and that's a bigger ask for people. But I always include the zines with the. I always include the PDFs with the zines. It's never a separate purchase, unless someone buys it a la carte. Then it's almost like I have to do that out of technical necessity to keep them separate. Alejandra, thank you so much for the support. So you get both PDFs for 10. So that's simple. That's simple math. After that, the zines, each one separately, because I felt like some people would want just Stabracadabra. They might just want my subclass books, because that's what I've made 4 of so far, and that's a proven track record. And the magic items is different, because again, magic items is really interesting when making stuff for Dungeons and Dragons. I stumbled onto making D&D projects through a minis campaign I had done. So during the pandemic, boy, I'm all over the map here. During the pandemic, I started sculpting. The main thing I wanted to do was sculpt my own characters from my comic, and specifically like Sir Quimp. Thank you, David, and thank you, Adam. I wanted to sculpt Sir Quimp because I really wanted statues and toys of my characters. Thank you, Kalikago. I really wanted to sculpt some of my characters. If you've ever, a lot of comic creators, we want to see our characters in the flesh and like real things, toys, and thank you, Matthew. And so to be able to sculpt, so during the pandemic, I taught myself how to sculpt. I use a program called Nomad Sculpt on my iPad. A lovely program, fairly inexpensive. I think it's like under $10, no monthly charge. And I taught myself how to sculpt. And like I mentioned before, had there been a monthly charge, I might never have learned how to sculpt, because I'm just so opposed to, software as a service. So I end up talking with the Trenchworks company about making a collection of minis of my figures, D&D size minis of my characters. And they do a lovely job. We get quotes back. I do a Kickstarter to make them, and I make it so that if we hit some sort of goal, one of our stretch goals was I will make a PDF. I will make a PDF of a subclass for wizards called Intoximancers, because in the story of the Middle Age, the wizard Melvin the Magnificent is an Intoximancer. It's a key part of the story, and a lot of fun for that particular character, and a nuisance for our hero. We didn't unlock that stretch goal. And so I had this thing I really wanted to make, this subclass for Intoximancy, Intoximantic wizards, and we didn't unlock it. But then right around the corner was Zine Quest, which Kickstarter had moved from the normal February to August. Put it right in front of me. I had this thing, my campaign wrapped up in June, and July, and then Zine Quest was right there. I'm like, okay, I will make it a zine. Telemon, thank you so much. So I make it a zine. I was going to make it like a simple 2-page, 4-page PDF, maybe photocopied. I just what am I making? How am I making D&D stuff? You see what the Player's Handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide and all the products from Green Ronin and Darrington Press and just everyone's products look so great. And what am I doing? And how dare I? mostly what it came down to is how dare I? I was going to make it like 50 cents or like $1. And like my lady was saying that well, if you only charge very little, people will think it's not worth much. You have to charge more for it. And so I made it $5. Okay, $5. But now it's $5 and I have to over deliver. I can't give them what I was going to give them for 50 cents or $1. I have to really do. So I go all in. And where are you? Intoximancy. And the printer could do hardcovers as well. So I made a zine, I made a PDF. It's 32 pages, packed with artwork, packed with rules, packed with magic items and monsters. And I kind of taught myself how to paint based on the minis, because I've done some I'm again a cartoonist. I've done a ton of coloring, but to paint and to sort of meet the Dungeons and Dragons crowd halfway between my style and what people expect from a D&D book. And part of it at some point became a thing where if you're a player and you want to have your Intoximancer at the table, that this sort of becomes Exhibit A in your case to let the Dungeon Master let you do that. Like, if this looks good, if this looks to the Dungeon Master's eyes like, okay, this looks legit, then you're more likely to get away with having this character at the table. And it got to, and as having come back to D&D during the pandemic and just kind of, like I do with most things, just throw myself entirely into it, just loving the game and loving 5e, adding my own spin to some things, or seeing where things were like, okay, that feels like this class is missing a little something, or this moment of leveling up feels like a letdown. How can I juice those moments in a way that makes it more fun? So I ended up doing this, ends up being very successful, ends up getting an Annie nomination. I'm like, okay, I got to make more of these things. And so that's where Death Dealing came from. So Intoximancy was very much inspired by the Middle Age. Death Dealing was just me wanting to do something which I thought would be cool and fun. Jonathan, thank you so much. And so I don't know, it's a crazy fun thing that I've got to do. Having to get to go to a Gamehole Con and reconnect with my buddy Dan, who I was drawing the Star Trek comic for IDW. That's right, I'm a Shatner and Nimoy approved artist. I had to submit character drawings of Spock and Kirk to send to William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy's people. I'm certain they never set eyes on it, but they approved me as an artist for that. So that required clearance back in the day. I don't know if it does anymore. But I was the artist who also kind of helped IDW land the license. I remember I still have a 2-page story written by Chris Ryle and illustrated by me, which was the pitch that they sent to Paramount to get the license. But anywho, so Dan was the editor on those books, and so I reconnected with Dan. He was making D&D stuff too, and so it was nice. Two comics semi-expatriates getting to work together on the D&D side of things was a lot of fun. Telmont says, and Steve, with the amount of AI slop people pay stupid prices for that are just magic items, a good amount of people would back magic items only zine. Hey, Everwolf, nice to see you. I get that. Okay, so in about 2 weeks, it's next week. Backer Kid is doing what they're calling their very first holiday market. They reached out to me, and they're doing like, if you have people have backstock, a chance to compete in some way with the Thanksgiving sales. So you get to put your backstock and make it available through Backer Kit. So it doesn't have a goal. There's no goal associated with it. It's basically just, here are some items. And so I'm going to put some packages of hardcover zines and PDFs. My focus is Stabracadabra. That's more of an experiment. I haven't used their system before. It was a chance for me to talk with Backer Kit. Oh my goodness. Steven, thank you. Oh boy. Garathalian, thank you so much. It was a chance to use Backer Kit's system. What I love about Backer Kit is they don't allow AI. And the trouble is Kickstarter does. The idea that Kickstarter has that allows it, and that the only, I don't know if you can filter it out in your search results, but it's an honor system. You can opt in and opt out. I was very, very disappointed to see that someone who I follow and have backed their Kickstarters in the past released a new project, and the image they sent along and the cover of their project image. The Kickstarter calls that big thing the project image. The project image is just AI, or has this veneer of AI slapped on top of it. And they're quite upfront in so the person responsibly at that part in the project, in the story page, when you get to the bottom of a page on Kickstarter, there's a section where it asks you, did you use AI in this? And if you don't answer in the affirmative that you did, if you say you did, it is included. If you don't say anything, if you say no or don't say anything, it doesn't include that section at all. And I don't think it lets you sort by that. Like, just show me things made exclusively by humans. So because it's a volunteer system, it's an honor system for people using a dishonorable product, using AI, so I don't see how you square that. You're never going to get people to volunteer in this section of, have you done something unscrupulous? Don't worry, the honor system will cover that. Boy, I've been all over the map of this. I didn't finish the thought about, I apologize for people joining me at this moment, or ever really. If you, the fun, powerful, and playable are the kind of the mission statement, if there is such a thing for my D&D books. The fun part, again, a lot of flavor, a lot of character. Powerful is a real hook for players. Often they will pick a subclass based on its effectiveness, and I don't think power has to necessarily be, you add 2d10 to everything you do, like to damage to everything you do, or you always crit. It'd be real easy to make a subclass, and I've seen people do this. They make a subclass and it's just overpowered. And I saw this with World of Warcraft. They would release a new expansion. Do they call them expansions? And a new block of content and a dungeon. And when you go into that dungeon, it unlocks, there'd be new magic items to find in that dungeon. And then someone would, Wowhead or some other one, I forget the other one, the other database of World of Warcraft stuff. They would say that, of the top guilds, all of them have equipped this sword, this bow, this helmet, this trinket, whatever. Therefore, it's the best. And that is Vince. Thank you so much. That seems weird to me, and that's not just because it's more powerful doesn't mean it's the best thing for a role-playing game. And I think, in fact, if it's overpowered, it's less fun for other people at the table. It's less fun for the dungeon master. So I'm not a fan of adding power. I'm a fan of adding versatility. Again, that's fun, but it's also so when I say power, not pure power, it's power at a cost. It's a power that doesn't happen all the time. It's something that gets triggered by a crit, or you can do it up to your proficiency bonus per day, something like that. Lauren, thank you so much. Stuff like that. I really feel like that's where it gets interesting. And then playable, it sounds good. I think it sounds good to players, but it's really me tamping down on the power. Playable means other people at the table like it. If you have a character who is a force amplifier for everybody else at the table, that's better. You could do more damage, sure, but if you make everybody else do a little more damage, that's even better. Maybe you do less damage and everybody else does more. Way better. Way better. Russell, thank you so much. And Alex, thank you so much. Boy, we're coming up. I was going to do this until about 12:30. We're coming up on that time. I have to run errands. I'm sorry to say. But I will be popping back on. I'm going to stream again this evening. Let me see. Can I even tell if there's anybody here? Thank you, Telemont. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Weverwolf, for the comments and letting me know you are in fact alive. My tab says I'm not online, but this one says I am online. Samuel, thank you so much. Not sure why my little dashboard there, my restream channels, are not doing anything. I'm going to see if I can refresh that. Oh yeah, it says there's a few people over on the Twitch. Thank you so much. You're lovely. But look at this. We're halfway to our goal. 42 backers in about half an hour. And you all are just... Closer Hornet 6. Thank you so much. Samuel, Jamie, thank you. Russell, Alex, Lauren, Vince, Steven. You are all delightful. And as I mentioned before, beautifully symmetrical, and I love everything about you. It's just a lilt to your voice, I have to add. But I will be back later on. Thank you all so much. I am less terrified at this moment that we're halfway to our goal. I want to put that graphic on it that says, like, fully funded in, one 207th of the life of a mayfly. Whatever amount of time. But I still want to do a video. I want to do a video, and I feel like I want to do videos just talking about the mechanics and what is involved in this class. So I think it can spook some people. You're trading my death saves. I get to I don't want the fighter. The plan is not to let the fighter truly be expendable. The sword can think it's expendable. The fighter can be expendable to some degree, but there is a penalty for if your fighter dies. You can't just keep every adventure running in Leroy Jenkinsing every situation. And the catch, one of the catches for sure, is that the sword has to be in a recoverable position. If it's at the bottom of the lava in Mount Doom, I'm afraid you have to roll up a new sword. But you're all fantastic. Thank you all so much. Oh, and someone asked about this online. The sword has stats. The sword has charisma, wisdom, and intellect, and so those continue. Regardless of your host. So there's a separate system. That is a point buy, because you still get to roll up your character. I could see no logical way of making it so that you could, and because it continues from character to character, it would be too easy for a character with a point buy or rolling to put all your initial stats into charisma, wisdom, and intellect. Right? You have your level 1 fighter, and your level 1 fighter, you put nothing into strength, constitution, or dexterity. That character dies, and you get a new fighter, and then you dump all your stats in that, so suddenly you've got the best of both worlds. That's no fun. So you have a point buy for the sword stats, and then you can build your fighter as you would normally. Although, I will say, again, one more thing. Oh, Francesco. Thank you so much. I will say, one other feature is that it is not... this is a fighter subclass that you can't make strength a dump stat. This is a strength-based fighter. Too many fighters nowadays. I'm looking at you, Liam O'Brien. Have focused entirely on their dexterity to the detriment of, I think, the profile, the archetypal profile of a fighter. And these fighters are strength-based. And so I give strength a few more perks. So it's you will be happy to you will be very happy to have a lot of strength in this class. Michael, thank you so much. We are at, that should be like 44 backers, and I am gonna sign out here. I will see you all next time. Thank you again. I'll log in. I'll stream a little bit later on. You are delightful. I'll talk more about the strength, the characters. I'll talk more about how we're doing. I'll talk about more if people are interested in the promotional part of this, like what was I doing to promote this. Mostly it's mailing list and delivering on past promises. But I'm not running any ads. I did, but we'll talk more about that later on. But thank you all so much. I'll see you all later. You are fantastic.